pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, take the roll.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here.
Morissette.
Here.
Holmes.
Here.
DeZiel.
Here.
Brooke.
Here.
Hall.
Here.
All right, so given that this meeting is out of the ordinary, uncharted territory, procedurally, we might have some hiccups here, but looking for advice always. So before we get into the agenda,
I was hoping I could request a personal point of privilege.
yes.
Thank you. I just would like to, before we get into reviewing Ms. Christie's complaint, point out 2 points of order or process that I'd encourage us to consider. One, today we did receive an email at 2 p.m. regarding our meeting tonight and some recommendations from a labor attorney. I know that with my work schedule, I was able to give it a cursory look, but really did not have enough time to do due diligence, and I'm wondering if perhaps other people might feel that way here on the council. But I also want to point out, maybe we're at a point where we need to press pause, and we need to get procedures in place on how to handle these ethic complaints should any other ones arrive. And so those are 2 things I would just like us to consider before we move into the meeting. That being said, I do need to recuse myself due to a potential personal conflict of interest. So I just wanted to make those points before I did that.
It's up to you.
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Brooke. Anybody else before we get going? All right, so this is going to take a couple different parts. The first part is going to be consideration of the complaint filed against the city administrator. The second part against the complaint against the city attorney. The third part, the complaint against Councilmember Morissette and myself. I will be presiding over the first 2 portions, and the council president, Alms, will be presiding over the last item, as Councilmember Morissette and myself will have to recuse ourselves. So, like I say, it's kind of an odd meeting where we're going to have a lot of people recusing themselves for a variety of reasons. So, and at different points throughout the meeting. So, the first part, the complaint against the city administrator.
Mr. Mayor, let me just explain to the council what you have in front of you. You've received the complaint that was filed by Ms. Christie. You received a subsequent memorandum from me outlining and detailing the background of the complaint, ultimately including the various chapters of the Code of Ethics that were referenced, the procedure that the council should follow, as described by the mayor, the council addressing the allegations against the city administrator, the council addressing the allegations against myself, and that the council, less the mayor and Councilmember Morissette, addressing the balance of the allegations. And then my recommendations. And so you've got that document. Subsequently, thereafter, the city also engaged the services of its counsel that it uses in employment and labor situations, the Von Briesen law firm. Kyle Gulia, who is your labor counsel, who routinely works on your police and labor contracts, and his partner, Steve Sorensen, who looked at the entire file and also issued a report. So you have my memorandum, which addresses all of the background and the procedure. You have Steve's memorandum, which came this afternoon, which I have also distributed in hard copy to all of the members of the council. here tonight. You've had my memorandum for days, so I'm not going to walk through all of the information in that memorandum, but I do want to highlight some of the information that was provided in Mr. Sorensen's letter. He starts with the issues involved, and the first issue involved is whether the document submitted by Sherry Christie represents a document that requires action by the Hudson City Council. This matter is before the council because the first question is whether there's anything that rises to the level of an ethics complaint in Ms. Christie's document that she submitted. Mr. Sorensen analyzes this question by indicating that Ms. Christie refers to the document as an ethics complaint. However, the document itself does not establish the basis for the filing of the complaint procedurally. There's nothing in Chapter 37 of the City of Hudson Municipal Code, nor in Wisconsin Statute 19.59 that addresses the procedure to be followed in filing ethic complaints against municipal officials. Also, there is nothing in the statute cited by the complainant, being Wisconsin Statutory Section 7.30, Sub 2 Sub A and Sub 4 Sub E, that would give rise to the ability of a citizen to file an ethics complaint against the city. He goes on to state that it is my opinion that at this point it is simply a communication from a citizen. It is up to the City Council to determine if they want to do anything in regard to what the complainant has described as an ethics complaint. There is nothing in the existing ethics code that would require the City Council to take any action based upon the statements of a citizen in the community. It is up to the City Council in their capacity as the policy-making branch of the city to determine what action they would like to take. Again, his conclusion, his direction, very similar to what you saw in my memorandum as well, in terms of the council being the policy maker in determining what the council should actually do with the document that's been submitted. Mr. Sorensen also analyzes a question of how the council would proceed if it decided to investigate the statements contained in the document. He indicates that given the framework of the document presented by the complainant, the council is appropriately the first body that would take any action regarding the requests in the document. And so, as we work through kind of the three areas of consideration against the city administrator, myself, and the mayor and council member Morissette, ultimately the council would decide whether there's anything that's actionable that should in fact be referred to the finance committee, sitting as the ethics committee, that would bear on inappropriate conduct. Now, Mr. Sorensen at length here discusses the difference between inappropriate conduct, misconduct, and decorum, right? Decorum is the way we speak to one another. Inappropriate or misconduct is based on the statute and based on how your ethics code identifies conduct that's appropriate for those on the council. When he analyzes or provides detail on how we go about reviewing the concerns against the city administrator himself, Mr. Sorensen confirms what I've indicated, which is that your city administrator is subject to a contract. He is an employee of the city. He's subject to the terms of the contract. The city handbook also plays into this because it establishes the responsibilities of employees within the city of Hudson. And so there's a different set of rules or regulations that apply to the city administrator, separate and apart from what would apply to council members. And so if you were to move in the direction of reviewing his conduct, there would be a process that likely would involve a closed session, that would likely involve a review of his conduct, a discussion with Mr. Reeves, and we would move through that process. That being said, it's important for the council to review the allegations against Mr. Reeves as contained in the complaint. And Mr. Sorensen confirms that the actual claims of misconduct are not included in the complaint. Rather, the city administrator is referred to in general as part of the group, but there are no allegations that have been directly raised with respect to any conduct of the city administrator. And in fact, in reviewing the tape from the last meeting, the video from the last meeting, the city administrator barely, if at all, participated in the conversation as part of the discussion amongst the council. Accordingly, Mr. Sorensen states, and I'm going to take out the city attorney piece for a second, one can quickly dismiss the city administrator because there is nothing in the complaint that suggests any activity that they may or may not have taken that would violate this contract. There should be no further action taken with regard to the city administrator based on the presented document. So that is Mr. Sorensen's recommendation. That is also my recommendation as your city attorney, that there's not been anything that's been specifically alleged against your city administrator that would warrant further review or a closed session discussion. And so accordingly, it would be my recommendation that that part of the complaint be denied and that the matter be closed with respect to Mr. Reeves.
I would agree, and I would motion to dismiss or deny the ethics allegation against City Administrator Aaron Reeves.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to dismiss. Is there discussion?
I guess my reasoning for my motion is I come to the same conclusion after being present at that meeting and looking at the complaint and reading the complaint. I just think it's a real stretch. I don't see evidence. I don't see facts. I don't see a reason that we would move further. I would add that in my time, Aaron Reeves has been a person of high moral standards and ethics, and I just don't see anything there factually. So that's why I'm moving to dismiss.
Anybody else?
Well, I have a question for Aaron. Is there anything that you've learned from this or any takeaways from this whole business?
Nothing other than we probably need to review our ethics code to determine how we should be accepting and allowing these things to occur.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to note that we just reviewed Aaron's performance and we gave him an incredible performance review. So I agree with you, Paul. So thank you, Aaron.
Excellent. Anybody else? I think I'd like to add also that I think that that in the time that Aaron has been our city administrator, that his conduct has been beyond reproach, and I think that he has been level-handed in how he handles difficult situations. Over the last few years, we have encountered some very, very difficult situations, constantly entering into uncharted territory, and I think that he's done a great job providing advice, counsel, guidance, and I think this is an appropriate motion. Anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
All right, well, we will move on to the next piece of this, which is the allegation against the city attorney. And you have the information contained within my memorandum. As you know, our firm is the third-party consultant. The city attorney contracted with the Common Council. As it's alleged in the complaint that we answer to the mayor, which is just not an accurate statement of fact. Our client is the City of Hudson, the Common Council, and it's important that everybody understand that construct. Attorney Sorensen indicates similarly with respect to us as it relates to Mr. Reeves, that we operate subject to a contract as well. The obligations of our law firm are well set out in that contract, and the council at any time has the right to review our position and the manner in which we're providing a representation to the city. The complaint indicates that because I participated in the discussion that led to the 5-0 approval of the city's election workers, that the firm should be disqualified from participating in the investigation of this complaint. And again, it indicates that we shouldn't be trusted to handle the complaint because we answer only to the mayor. We just discussed that piece of it. As Mr. Sorensen indicated, to the extent that the council wants to review or discuss performance or the way in which we're representing the city, that is a contractual discussion, one that can be had in closed session should the council seek to do that. But similar to the city administrator, Mr. Sorensen indicates that one can quickly dismiss the city attorney because there is nothing in the complaint that suggests any activity that we may or may not have taken that would violate our contract with the city of Hudson. There should be no further action taken with regard to the city attorney based on the presented document. And so ultimately, I'm not going to make a recommendation on this one, of course, but leave it to you as to how the council would like to proceed with respect to our piece of the complaint.
I would make the motion to dismiss the ethics complaint against our attorney, Nick Vivian.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
I guess the reason I'm making that motion is I just see this as a stretch. I see this as not based in fact or reality. I think, Nick, you have served with, again, the highest of ethics, and you have the city's ultimate best aim in mind. You give sound legal advice. I saw nothing from the December 6th meeting where you impeded any kind of council action in any way. I just honestly don't understand the allegation because I just don't see any factual basis for it.
Anybody else?
I'll ask the same question that I asked Aaron. Do you see anything that you can learn from this, or that we can improve?
Well, I'm going to tell you these issues are difficult, and everybody has to come to the table with an open mind and needs to be able to discuss difficult issues professionally, thoroughly. I mean, this is where the business of the leaders of Hudson gets done. Mm-hmm. And you've spoken a lot as a group about working together, working collaboratively. And I think that the fact that we've had competing ethics complaints is kind of a product of our process. And I hope we get back to a position and to a point where there can be that dialogue and discourse that you guys want to have, because I don't necessarily think it's the best use of your time to spend it in arguing about who's ethically right and who's ethically wrong. It's just a real challenge in anything that you do. So, I hope we can turn that corner, because as I've said to all of you, there are lots of major issues that you will need to work on and decide and work through over the course of the coming year and years, and our time is going to be best spent working as best we can through those issues and working together and collaboratively, as opposed to working through ethics complaints.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for your pragmatic approach to dispelling what our legal options are when we're in discussion. Looking back at that meeting, I know for myself, and I can only speak for myself, I take obviously the legal direction into consideration, but it's not my full thrust of my decision, and I stick with that same decision that I made on December 6th in that 5-0 vote. So thank you, Mr. Rudian.
Appreciate it. I would also add, my job is not to be involved in the politics of what you all do, or to even be involved in how you make your decisions. It's to provide you with information, and to provide you with the best information so that you guys can make the best decisions that you can for your constituents. I think that's the proper and appropriate role of the city attorney. And I hope that's a role that I can continue to serve and fill, because that's where your city attorney should be. It shouldn't be about taking sides. It shouldn't be about deciding who's right or who's wrong. It should be about providing you with the law, analyzing the law, help you analyzing risk, and moving forward so that you can make good, solid decisions on behalf of the residents of the city of Hudson.
So I would say the same thing here, as I said about our administrator, Nick. I think that you've done a great job in advising us, providing us counsel. I think it's been even-handed, and I think you've done a very good job, and again, some very, very difficult times in guiding us through these issues. So thank you.
I agree, thank you.
Anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Mr. Mayor outlined earlier, now that we are to 3 subset C concerning Mayor O'Connor and Councilmember Morissette, I, as City Council President, am presiding over this portion. And so I just wanted to open it up, my understanding, ahead of the meeting, that there's 2 possible actions with this, right? One possible action is to dismiss the complaint if it does not rise to the level of an ethics violation, or refer to the matter to the Finance Committee, who would then act as the Ethics Committee for further action. Is that a fair statement?
That's accurate, yes.
Okay. So we received, thank you for reaching out to that other party for the legal. I've spent pretty much the rest of the afternoon absorbing that information from Stephen. And I don't see the matter of the ethics complaint towards Mayor O'Connor and Mr. Morissette to rise to the level of ethics as an ethics violation. It, to me, and I think Stephen really outlined that in his brief, is really kind of based in opinion, really circled around decorum, which, of course, ethics violations don't really talk towards decorum. So, let's see.
Well, I wish this attorney had been attorney had been consulted with the previous ethics complaint. I think we might have saved a lot of difficulties and money.
So I don't know what.
Just so I'm clear about what's happening right now, is who's all being recused from the conversation?
Good question.
I am.
And I am.
Okay.
I will participate in the conversation, but I won't participate in the vote.
You will not? I'm sorry, I didn't.
I won't participate in the vote.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so today I prepared a few thoughts on this ethics complaint filed against our 2 council members. I will read my statement because I want to be precise, accurate, and charitable in my words. My hope is that my words will add some perspective to calm the tensions we have experienced in Hudson the past month. I also aim to encourage us to extend more respect and grace to each other in future meetings. First, I want to start by revisiting our December 6th, 2021 City Council meeting. I think that what occurred at that meeting was misinterpreted by many, which led to anger, misunderstanding, and a lack of trust in our council. I will share my perspective as to what I observed that evening with the intention of building a common understanding. As background, I have known Alderperson Hall as a colleague on the City Council for 4 years. My experience of her as a colleague has been positive. I have observed her deep care for her constituents and her integrity in standing up for what she believes is right for Hudson. I have no doubt in my mind that Alderperson Hall acted with good intent when she raised questions about the suitability of a potential poll worker in Hudson. It is clear to me that she was not objecting based on partisan politics, but rather concerns raised by her constituents in District 6. In short, I believe she was doing her job as an elected official to safeguard the integrity of our local elections. That said, I acknowledge that Alderperson Hall made some inferences at the meeting, or maybe leaps of judgment, that were not based in facts, but to her credit, she took responsibility for these comments at our last council meeting. I believe that all of us on the council benefited from that experience, because it reminded us all of our ethical duties as community leaders to treat all with respect. Secondly, I want to address the current ethics complaint before the council tonight that also stems from that December 6, 2021 meeting. I have read both the ethics complaint, our city attorney's response, as well as the City Ethics Code Section 37.2 on responsibility of public officials, and Section 37.5 on conflict of interest. And now I can add, I've read the new one that came out this afternoon. So after considering the ethics complaint filed by Ms. Christie, I conclude that Alderperson Morissette and Mayor O'Connor did not violate the City Code of Ethics in any meaningful way at the December 6, 2021 meeting. I interpret the Ethics Code intent in Section 37.5 to prevent serious conflict of interest due to relationship council members may have, which provides them personal financial gain in business or other dealings. But I don't interpret the code to include the acceptance of campaign contributions from supporters. I think applying that standard would be too high, as council members would need to remember every single person who contributed to their campaign, what special interests they have, and then somehow try to apply that universally in decision making. I will add that the second attorney's opinion that came out this afternoon reiterates that the law or the state statute does not pertain to previous campaign contributions toward a candidate. In addition, I would like to point out that I have observed Mayor O'Connor recusing himself from a discussion about the Hudson, is it the Hudson Choral, the singing group? In the summer of 2020, because he has a family member who directs the group. So I believe that the mayor is aware and exercises good judgment when conflicts of interest arrive in our council discussions. As far as the ethics complaint concerning Section 37.2, which states of city council members, and I quote here, their conduct in both their official and private affairs must be above reproach so as to foster respect for all government, end quote. The crux of Ms. Christie's ethical complaint regarding Section 37.2 is that Mayor O'Connor laughed at Alderperson Hall and that Alderperson Morissette belittled her comments, and therefore those qualify as violating the ethics code. While I don't like or condone either one of these behaviors by the council members named, I don't believe that they constitute a violation of the ethics code. I believe the ethics code's intent is to prevent more serious behaviors, such as name-calling, cursing, physical intimidation, perhaps slandering. Truth is, we don't know because they're not listed in the ethics code. I agree with Alderperson Brooke that we may need to revisit the ethics code to add clarification, to help guide city councils, and to also help guide the public in the future. Third, I want to extend a broader invitation to the council and to the public to operate more respectively and gracefully with each other in the future. While the national political scene seems to be locked into a perpetual approach of disrespect and aggressiveness amplified by cable TV and radio, I encourage us in Hudson to remain calm, to be reasoned, to be charitable, to state our positions respectfully. I believe it is healthy and necessary to have legitimate differences of opinions when crafting public policy. But I also think we can do this in respectful and constructive ways that seek mutual understanding. While we strive to do this, let us also remember that we are human beings, and none of us gets it right all the time. I invite us to hold each other accountable when we experience council members or members of the public treating others disrespectfully in this room. I also gently suggest we try to extend grace to each other when we make mistakes. I will pledge my best in these areas in the future so that we can move forward and focus on what the people elected us to do. Work together positively to build a stronger and a better Hudson. Did you already make a motion?
I did not.
Okay, so with that, I motion to dismiss the ethics complaint filed by Ms. Christie against Mayor O'Connor and Alderperson Morissette because it lacks sufficient evidence to demonstrate they violated the city code of ethics under section 37.
I'll second. I'm sorry, Mrs. Hall. You said that you were not participating in the vote?
I will participate in the discussion, but not in
Discussion
the
on the
vote.
vote? Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Did you want?
So, all right, so Rich, is there anything that you've learned from this and that you'd like to share, or anything that you think that we could do to change to make things work better?
Well, I think, first of all, I think it's very apparent that we have work to do on our ethics code. There's no doubt about that. I think that there are a lot of gaps in there. I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding about what the ethics code is about. I have always fought for and championed civility, and I think that I don't want to get off into the weeds too much here, but you know my position on that. You know my position on the golden rule. Frankly, in this process, I need to process. I need time to process what has happened here over the course of the last few weeks before I can really give, I think, a well-reasoned opinion on what I've learned from this. There's just a lot to process. We have been, like I said, you know, how many times have we entered in the last 2-3 years into territory that we've never, not only we never had to deal with, but we can't even rely on. We can't go back and look to guidance from previous councils to determine how things were done. So, like I said, I need to really contemplate this and process it before I can give any examples of, and frankly, I don't know that it's played out completely yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't know that it has, and
I don't either.
Unfortunately, I have the sense that this hasn't played out completely yet. So I will withhold what I've learned from this until I can tell you exactly what I've learned from this after I've processed it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that makes sense.
Randy, same question.
Yeah, I think I said it at the last 2 meetings we had. I can do a better job at how I consider what my passion is for Hudson over the 16 years I've been involved here, and my born and raised being in a Hudsonite. I'm not going to apologize for my passion, but I would apologize if my tone of voice offends people. That is not my intent, and never will be. But it is also my obligation to question my colleagues, but to do it respectfully. And if I came across the wrong way, that's on me. But don't conflict it for passion.
Okay.
You know, I would like to add, Joyce, that with respect to the accusation that was pretty prominent throughout the complaint that I laughed at you, it's my recollection that the only time that there was a chuckle was when you had said that you didn't think that this was partisan, and I laughed and said, of course it's partisan. These are partisan lists that are being handed to us. Was I laughing at you? No. And people know me, I laugh at pretty much anything. I laugh at myself when I say things that I think are funny, or not because I think they're funny, but maybe just the way I say them. I have a tendency to laugh at myself as well. And if you thought I was laughing at you, then I need to do better than that, because I don't laugh at people like that. Let me ask you, what have you learned from this?
I've learned that First of all, it's very difficult to do my job if I feel that I have a concern that there's going to be an ethics complaint filed against me for doing that job. I also, I agree with everything that Paul has said, that we do need to give each other grace. We do need to give each other the benefit of the doubt. But I think, though, that we also need to work on civility. There's no question about that. There is a problem with civility. And Randy, you called it passion. And, and I agree. I see that you do have a passion for the city. But I also see incivility here that needs to be addressed. Because I see that my integrity and my character has been attacked. And it's very upsetting to me because I take pride in being an ethical person. And to have gone through this, it was very, very demeaning and difficult. And it had a huge impact on my family that I shouldn't have had to deal with. One of the things that stands out is as soon as I made the motion, instead of asking questions, Randy said that I was being partisan and petty. And that to me felt like an attack. And that's where I'm saying we need to look at the incivility. The other part that I think was an attack was when, Rich, when you brought up the email that I sent about the police officer and his Facebook post. I did not indicate that I thought that this person was a racist or anything like that. I was sending the information on to Jeff to handle. I did not say that I was giving him the information that was given to me. That was my job. And so here, the issue that I have is that I get attacked for doing my job. And there's a problem here that needs to be addressed. And I think that Bill Ohm's idea is a good one, that we need to bring somebody in. And my husband mentioned this at during the public comments about how the county has handled this by bringing somebody in to mediate a discussion that would help us to learn how to talk to one another better. And I think that that is an excellent idea that needs to be done. The other thing that I've noticed is that, Sarah has asked previously, before any of this even came up, to go over the ethics code. Mm-hmm. And that suggestion was ignored. And so I think that those are the things that need to be addressed. Why was that ignored?
I think on that end, you had brought it up in the previous council meeting that we would talk about that in the next council meeting, or that you wanted that on the agenda. And I believe that is set for that agenda, I would assume. But
if I can, Joyce, we didn't file any ethics complaint against you. We didn't do that.
No, but
And we do know over the week, this whole week, how you felt, along with the family. We see social media. We know what's going on. We're being harassed. That's not right either, is it?
I haven't seen any of what's.
Some of them are here, some of them are online, and they're harassing us.
I haven't seen any of
Emails,
this.
phone calls.
Well, I've seen the emails.
That's not right either.
Well, I think that, well, okay, so how do we hold people accountable for their behavior and their?
Well,
their
you're right, it starts with us.
Hmm?
It starts with us,
Right.
and I agree completely,
So how do we do this?
for the next meeting.
So, yeah, let's bring in a mediator to talk about these things.
And
But,
that
you know,
will-
and this is a conversation that I recently had with Larry Ziman, one of the pastors at Faith Community Church, is that we need to get out from behind our screens and start talking to each other in person and discussing our differences rather than being keyboard warriors. So, this is off the topic, but, you know, it is on my mind.
Which is what I was going to bring up. I think we're going to have to save that conversation for another time. Any other, so we still have the motion on the floor, second. Is there any more discussion about what's before us? I want to thank you for your words, Mr. DeZiel, and the work that you put forth. You know, and taking a look at this again, you know, I started out by saying that, you know, this didn't rise to the level of ethics and more is about decorum and opinion. So, yeah, but, you know, I completely agree with the things that you were saying. I agree with the points that you brought up, Joyce, and thank you for having that conversation. I really appreciate that, between all of you, Mr. Morissette, Mr. O'Connor, so. With that, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I don't believe I've,
So he should be noted as an abstain,
as an
Yes.
abstain.
that she participated in
Okay.
the discussion.
Move to adjourn?
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned.
Thank you.